conversation.
If it is, there's probably like, realistically, how many people are regularly crushing sides and like a dozen or something?
That's what I mean. Yeah, they don't care about that. Ben always talks about do more of it to keep your account in good health. You know, keep your accounts in good health by betting more sides.
I tried it. It didn't work. It didn't really work for me. It didn't help anything.
Yeah. I think your futures bets probably didn't help you long term. If I had to guess.
What can you do?
Well, you got in, you got out while you could, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's better than the alternative, which is not getting limited and just losing.
Yes, that's true. Hey, good morning. Welcome to the Stokastic.com NFL Strategy Show. Lineup building edition. Let's go. This is a great slate. Ben and I broke it down yesterday, taking a kind of foundational look at this on the First Look show. And man, just really loaded up top. Value, and I'm just kind of setting the table for you guys who are tuning in today, maybe didn't yesterday, or, you know, just to kind of bit of a refresher here. Value is not very abundant right now, but there's also a lot of injuries. Like there's a lot of injuries out there that are probably going to influence how this slate is played. Like, will Jonathan Taylor play? Will Jordan Mason play? Will James, I mean, if James Cook doesn't play, I assume he will, right? I assume he will, but if he doesn't play, Ray Davis becomes probably the most popular player on the entire slate. Devon Achane, Aaron Jones is questionable. Brian Robinson against the Carolina Panthers. Devin Singletary. Nick Chubb is going to play, but probably in a limited fashion in his first action in over a calendar year. Tajay Spears is likely out, being week to week. Zamir White, Alexander Madison could become viable. Those, Greg, are just the running backs.
Yeah, and it's something that last week, and it's why like just stuff always ends up changing later on in the week. Like we did this show Wednesday, you and I together, like not a lot of value on the slate. Then we did the show on Friday. We're like, boy, now there's really no value because we made it to Friday. Nobody gets ruled out. And then by the time we got to the end of Friday, the end of Saturday, there's no Rashad White, and like Bucky Irving's one of the best value plays of the week. So it just always seems to be that in some way value shows up by the time we get to Sunday. But as of right now, yeah, it's kind of hard to find.
Yeah, Rashad White, or sorry, Bucky Irving. Wait, who was the other? Because Tony Pollard was 6K, but that was already a good. Who was the other cheap running back? Brian Robinson was out, so Eckler was somewhat owned, not a lot.
Nobody who is crazy popular, but like Eckler wasn't really a strong consideration early last week, and then he ended up being viable. Antonio Gibson was another one. He was not a consideration earlier in the week, but it's not guys who are like 30% owned last week. It was just players who were not on the radar that ended up being like 8 to 12% owned.
I felt like there was one more, but I guess not. But also like Gus Edwards hit the IR. So then J.K. Dobbins became more popular. That was another one. There was a lot, but happy to have you guys here. Let's talk football. If you don't mind, before we get started, take a single second to atone for your sins this Wednesday morning. Hit that thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. Yes, it is 100% free, believe it or not, to subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you hate it, we'll gladly refund your misery. Just unsubscribe and never hear from us again. Move on to a competitor. Wouldn't recommend it, personally. Wouldn't recommend it. But if you decided to do so, well, okay, that's fine. By the way, Jordan, I'm looking on, are we live right now? I'm looking on YouTube. Why can I not find this?
I think, yeah, I'm going back and forth with some people.
Oh, I found it. Okay. I found it. Figured we were, just wanted to make sure. But yeah, appreciate you guys being with us. Okay, so the way we do this show, we're going to build lineups in the single lineup sim. The single lineup sim, then we run it. It gives you instant feedback on every lineup. It's simming it against the generated field, which is supposed to, in essence, mimic the fields that we're going to be playing against. That's why this stuff obviously is as valuable as it is. Anything else to add before we get started? Because we're going to provide a lot of analysis along the way too. This isn't just us being like, all right, well, let's go with Bijan, and Greg, you'll go with Aaron Jones. This is us actually trying to provide insight and analysis and game theory into how these lineups are being built. Because otherwise, let's be honest, it would be boring as shit.
Yeah. So the other thing that I would add to this too is these lineups, especially because we're building these on a Wednesday, it's just an idea of like what the kind of builds are looking like. Probably not the best idea in the world to, if you're watching the show on Sunday morning, just take these exact lineups and play them, particularly if news changes and there's different aspects of the slate that change. But other than that, it's a good insight to how to use the single lineup sims and what are looking like the best lineups and how you guys might want to be going about constructing your lineups for the week.
So let's make it happen. There are a lot of spots that I'm very high on this week. And some of them, Greg, when I say I'm very high on them, it's not that I'm high on not all of them. Some of them I'm not, and I mentioned this to Ben yesterday on the First Look show. I'm not in love with them as a stack thinking like this will be the highest raw scoring team in the league this week, but because of what they open up. And one of the examples of that, you could probably guess it. If you could I could not even say it. I bet you could probably guess which team I'm talking about that opens everything up, because as we stand right now, there's not a lot of value.
Yeah, I mean, I assume you're talking about Aaron Jones being questionable.
Well, what I'm talking about for stacks, getting to cheap stacks to open up the rest of the high priced guys, is this Andy Dalton stack in a 51.5, 52-point total game against Washington, where you go, okay, do I trust Andy Dalton? No, but they've blocked very well. They are 4-0 to the over in 4 games that Dalton has started. They have a good blocking offensive line, and they typically play from behind because the defense is the worst in the league, allowing over 34 points per game. I look at Dalton. I look at Deontay Johnson. I look at by the way, Jatavian Sanders last week, Greg. Jatavian Sanders last week.
Did he have a good game? I didn't play any lineups with him. I have no clue what he finished with.
Yeah, I had a 2-unit bet on the over too, so I was committed or invested. Yeah, he had 4 or 5 for 50, which at 2,700 is like, you'll take that any day of the week. But you have him if Tommy Tremble's not back. You have this Jalen Coker fella, not exciting at all, but minimum salary. It is a cheap stack. Dalton, in my opinion, is actually underpriced at 5,200. So is Geno Smith. But Dalton, with the attachments in a game where they likely play from behind the 7.5-point dogs, he opens a ton of stuff up.
Yeah, I mean, there's another one too, which I think is at least going to be worth talking about a little bit. As bad as they've been, if Deshaun Watson has like if he throws for 200 yards this week, now that Amari Cooper is gone, the wide receivers there are so cheap. Like, do we want to play Elijah Moore this week? Is Jerry Jeudy a consideration? Because the wideouts there are so cheap, and somebody is going to have to be getting the football thrown to them. So, I mean, that's another cheap stack that I don't think people are going to be playing, but it is at least of somewhat interest to me. Because, I mean, Elijah Moore is $3,200. Jerry Jeudy is $4,800. And that's a massive opportunity now that Amari Cooper is out of the mix.
It is a massive opportunity. And it's gross. It's true. It's despicable. I couldn't hate it more, but I get it. And the question becomes like, first of all, the offensive line is getting a little healthy. If Ethan Posick is back, that means you have Jack Conklin, Ethan Posick, and Jedrick Wills on the offensive line, which could make a big difference. You also get Nick Chubb back. I assume he'll be used in a limited capacity, but he should still be back. He is going to return this week. How comfortable would you be with getting, like, what type of exposure, though, are you comfortable with to a Brown stack? Because it is a good matchup. 6.5-point home divisional dogs is pretty crazy. But Cincinnati has proven that there are going to be weeks where they get gutted in the passing game.
Yeah. So it's not going to take much to any kind of exposure that's overweight to this team. And we've got Deshaun Watson is projected for 4% ownership. He's also $4,900. Like, I get that he's been as terrible as a quarterback could possibly be this year, but like, I played Spencer Rattler at 4K last week. Like, are we really saying like Deshaun Watson isn't playable compared to somebody like Spencer Rattler? So, I mean, $4,900, like we're just basically saying he's not a competent playable quarterback when he's $4,900. I do think that's probably the case, but even this, I think, is like a reasonable buy low on him, considering how much value there is there. You go Deshaun Watson with some like out of the two of the three of Judy, Moore, and Joku, and you just have unlimited salary to play with in the other spots in the lineup.
So there's two things to consider here. Okay, let me break them both down, and then let's build out some lineups, because this is the point of and the best part of the show. One, I've watched Deshaun Watson play all season. I've had a lot of Amari Cooper attachments, one-offs. I've had a lot of Amari Cooper bets, laddered him against the Giants to 100. He got to 88, should have had well over 100, but Deshaun Watson, once again, was terrible. He's no longer there. I've watched a good amount of Watson. I watched all 60 minutes of Deshaun Watson last week against the Eagles. He's pitiful. I mean, it couldn't be worse. It really, when I say that, I'm serious. Like, it actually couldn't be worse. So that's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is that if Watson had 17 and Judy finishes with 15, and you have the rest of the lineup that is basically do whatever you want, that's where this happens. Like last year, the Desmond Ridder stacks, it's doable. Daniel Jones this year. Yeah. But it's gross. I'd rather go to the Dalton Carolina stacks personally.
Yeah, I mean, it's really just even as bad as Deshaun Watson has been this year, he hasn't thrown for more than 200 yards yet. His season high for passing is 196 against the Giants. But you look at that game, 196 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, 26 rushing yards. If he does that this week, which it's a very low bar, just under 200 passing yards, a couple of touchdowns, and then you get, like 20 to 30 rushing yards, he's live to be the quarterback in the million-making winning lineup.
Yeah, and it's gross. No one's going to want to do it. And I don't blame anybody for not wanting to do it, for what it's worth. But he is at that price point now in a really good spot, in a really good matchup, where you at the very least, you have to consider it. But here's what I would like to do, Greg. I want to start one with Sam Darnold and Justin Jefferson and work from there. With no Aiden Hutchinson in this on the defensive line for the Lions. Look, I don't want to overstate it. And I said it can't be overstated and that he's irreplaceable. It is true. Through the first 6 weeks of the season, he literally leads the league in every pass rushing category, and he had a bye week, whereas most teams have played 6 games. That's how good he is. But I want to go to Sam Darnold and Jefferson because it is still a pass funnel Detroit defense, and now it's going to be easier to pass on them. And Minnesota's implied total this week is north of 26 points.
Makes sense. I mean, it's going to be a game that should be high scoring. Also on the other side of the game, the Lions play at a fast pace. So that's something that's also going to just create more overall plays in the game, more opportunities for fantasy points to be scored. And then, yeah, that defense, to your point, it's not the best pass defense in the league. They don't have a great secondary. And what they have been really relying on is the amount of pressure that Aiden Hutchinson puts on the quarterback to disrupt opposing passing games. Like, it just might be a bad defense going forward without him. I don't know what the odds were for defensive player of the year, but I'm fairly certain either him or Watt was the favorite. I don't think either of them was a significant favorite over the other, but it was probably neck and neck. And you could say pretty confidently one of either Watt or Hutchinson was going to be defensive player of the year. And now it's kind of Watt all by himself because Hutchinson's out. So really, really easier matchup on paper than otherwise would have been for the Vikings. I agree with you. I think it's a core stack. And then I think as of right now, Justin Jefferson, best pay up wide out on the slate.
I couldn't agree more. So let's try it. We'll see how chalky some of this is, but Jefferson is expensive. Sam Darnold is very reasonably priced. I mean, the $6K, $6,200 price point on Sam Darnold is solid. So you get Jefferson in there. I want one more. So I'm not saying you necessarily have to, but I do think a 2-player attachment here, probably good for a quarterback that isn't going to run a ton. It's not going to be at the tight end position. So do we want Addison? Do we want Naylor? What do we want? It has to be Addison, I think. That's kind of the problem. I don't really know who else it would be. And I don't love that price point on Jordan Addison. Maybe we do just go Sam Darnold +1.
Yeah, I'm good with that. Just because you could see so much volume going to Justin Jefferson, where, I mean, look at his targets. He had 14 targets last week in the game against the Jets. It wasn't efficient with it. He caught 6 of them for 92 yards. But if he's going to be getting 14 targets, there just isn't that much volume left for the other guys. Let me see. What was the target breakdown last week? Yeah, we got last week 14 to Jefferson, 8 went to Jordan Addison, but we just said he's kind of a little bit more expensive than we really want to play. Nobody else had more than 2 targets. Darnold only threw the ball to Jefferson or Addison last week.
What did Johnny Munn get?
He had 2 targets.
Okay.
Caught both of them for 31 yards.
Yeah, it's ugly, but like I wonder if I'd consider a Johnny Munn in there just because tight end is a terrible position.
Let me see. What is Johnny Munn's?
Like I actually think I
2,800.
would.
Yeah, he's 2,800. I think that's reasonable. I look at the other guys who are around $2,800. You've got Theo Johnson's there, Jatavian Sanders, Johnny Munn, Noah Gray. Njoku is 4,100, so a little bit more expensive there. Colby Parkinson, his price point hasn't moved. He's at 3,800. Yeah, there's a lot of viable cheap tight ends. None of them are guys who I'm like, oh, I need to be rostering that guy. So I'm cool with Johnny Munn being in the stack.
I have no problem with that. It's him or Addison. I want to try it with, let me see. I ran the Sims earlier. Let's see how much exposure. Yeah, we have very little Jordan Addison exposure, and it's all going to be attached to Sam Darnold. I mean, right, you would agree with that if you're getting Jordan Addison on this slate, it's almost certainly going to be in Sam Darnold stacks.
Yeah. Oh, so actually a good point being made in chat by who brought it up? Brandon Smith said Hawkinson may be coming back this week. Hawkinson's practicing. I do think it seems like he's going to be playing this week against the Lions, which would take Mundt out of play. So that's something to consider.
Definitely worth considering. Yeah. I mean, currently we have him out, but if he ends up returning, then you're probably not playing any of these guys. Let's see.
It would only be Jefferson for me if Hawkinson's back.
Yeah, that's what makes this stack a little bit difficult because Hawkinson is not cheap. All right, let's go Sam Darnold and let's go with Jefferson here. Because the cool thing about the Sam Darnold +1, now that I kind of think about this, we've actually seen a lot of games this year where Sam Darnold kind of in some capacity gets there, but you really only needed one attachment anyway. Like he spread it around outside of Justin Jefferson.
Yeah. He also hasn't had that many big passing games. I mean, he
hasn't needed to.
Yeah. Like he's thrown for 210 yards twice so far this year. But really efficient, lots of touchdowns. But yeah, like most of the targets are going to Jefferson.
All right. So we got Darnold, Jefferson. I mean, do we try making it work with Amon-Ra or no?
Is he 8K?
I think it'd be I think it's very difficult.
Yeah, 8,300. That's a really tough price point to get to, unless when more value potentially opens up at the end of the week or by the time we get to Sunday. But consider what we're playing with on Wednesday. I think we're really pinched for salary savings if we do the run back of Amon-Ra St. Brown.
By the way, Jordan, I just threw Brown's defense in there as well, so you can toss them in at 2,500. Running back, there is one guy I really want to try. I want to see what happens here. I know he's going to be popular, but I am a big proponent of Kyren Williams this week.
Yeah, Kyren at $8,100. His workload has just been crazy this year. All the concerns about would he be returning punts this year ended up not mattering at all. He isn't even returning punts anyway. So $8,100, Kyren Williams. He's established himself, especially in a good matchup this week, as just somebody who, like, he plays well for fantasy independent of matchups. It doesn't even matter how well the Rams offense does. He gets so much volume that it ends up working out for him. So yeah, I think that at $8,100, he is to the running back position what Justin Jefferson is to me right now in the wide receiver position. If I'm picking one guy to spend up for, I'm confidently picking on Kyron at the running back, wide receiver, confidently clicking on Justin Jefferson.
S&P, for what it's worth, the Lions secondary leads the league in tight window throws forced this season. Obviously, the pass rush contributes to that to some degree, but that might just be, that unit might just be much improved. Oh, I think the unit is improved, S&P, for what it's worth. But also, when you have guys like Aiden Hutchinson that leads the league in quarterback hits and quarterback hurries, in sacks and pressures, I actually do think that makes a really significant difference. You also can't run against the Lions. Well, look, they've only allowed 4 passing touchdowns to 7 interceptions. The secondary has been pretty stout. I'm not taking that away from them at all. But I think if there's a way to attack them this week, it's probably going to be through the air. Justin Jefferson's fantastic. And I think you're going to see these receivers, particularly Justin Jefferson, getting more opportunities to open things up because you also, you should have a cleaner pocket for Sam Darnold. Maybe I'm reading too far into it. Totally possible. But I do think Aiden Hutchinson makes a pretty significant difference. Again, maybe I'm just wrong.
Just because you haven't done it yet, Jordan, throw the Browns defense in just so we know what salary we have left. There's somebody who I think I'm going to like a good amount this week, but we can't plug him into lineups right now, and I'll explain why. Amari Cooper is $5,800, and assuming he is going to be in action for the Bills this week, he is going to be their number 1 wide receiver. And I think $5,800 is a crazy price tag on him. The problem, though, is that as of right now, he is still on the Browns in the DraftKings and FanDuel pricing, which would mean that he's ineligible to score fantasy points. I'm going to assume that they correct that by the time that we get to Sunday, but it's just somebody we can't plug into lineups right now. But he's somebody who would fit really well into this lineup. Amari Cooper, first game with the Bills. Are you going to be interested in clicking on that? Because I think there's opportunity for him to be one of the top 10 or so fantasy wide receivers the rest of the year, playing the same role that Stephon Diggs did in the past.
I agree with your second point. I don't fully agree with your first point. This is, maybe I'm just way off base. And we should actually go back and see other mid-season. Can you guys in chat help me out? What in-season, mid-season wide receiver trades were there last year that we could go into and look at route participation and snap counts from the previous season? Because my concern is that he's active, but that he's not in a full role yet in this offense. That's what it would feel like to me. But also that's just a feeling. I'm trying what. Oh God, there had to have been at least 1 or 2 last year. I think chat will help us out here as well, because these guys sometimes have a better memory than I do.
It just happens so seldomly that you get these big NFL trades, and it's crazy. I know the Cam Akers one, it's not a significant trade, but it was a trade that happened, and we don't usually see a ton of them in October. But we had 3 trades go down yesterday, and 2 of them at least very significant. The Amari Cooper trade, and then of course the Devontae Adams trade as well. Probably a little bit of correlation between the Adams and the Cooper trade, where as soon as the Bills saw the Jets land Devontae Adams, and I know the Bills were also in on trying to get him, it probably encouraged them to say boy, we have to make this move right now and go and get ourselves Amari Cooper to make sure that they're keeping a little bit of distance between themselves and the Jets. But that's why it's kind of hard, and you have to take a little bit of a leap of faith, because you just don't see these trades happen very often in midseason to be able to pull some sort of historical data set to see what that means for their production in the first week or 2 with the new team.
It makes it difficult for me, honestly. I probably don't end up getting to a ton of Amari Cooper, even if he's active. Another reason for that too is when I start looking at some of these mid-range wide receivers, and yes, they are a little bit more expensive, but Deontay Johnson, 6,600, probably a pass-heavy approach there. Tank Dell, 6,500. Jordan Whittington, 4,800 if Cooper Kupp doesn't come back. I assume Cooper Kupp is going to be back, but I'm just throwing it out there. Romeo Doubs at 5,500 with Dontavian Wicks likely out in this game. Another potential shootout there with that Green Bay spot and Houston. I'm not saying it's loaded because it's not, but I do think that 6K range offers us a lot of options. Terry McLaurin is there. DK Metcalf is there. But yeah, once you get into the lower tier, there's not quite as much. If you wanted to take some shots on Amari Cooper in large field contests, it's actually not crazy at all. It's just not a guy that I'd want my week to be dependent on, because I think we're still going to be questioning what his role is going into the week.
Yeah, I think we're going to be getting some reports, but who knows what the accuracy of it. This feels like one of those things where you get the Ian Rappaport report where it's like he's going to play a limited amount of snaps and his participation in the offense won't be all that significant. Then it's like first drive Amari Cooper is 6 targets or something like that. And everybody's like, oh, look, we got this bad report from Ian Rappaport. That seems to happen whenever there's those kinds of news on a Sunday morning. So I do think there's going to be some sort of update, but I don't know how accurate it's going to be.
You guys are letting me down. I really thought like within the past couple of years, someone would go, oh, I remember this guy was traded midseason, came in and dominated the following week. But the problem, the issue is that you can't just pick a receiver. It also has to be a good receiver.
It just doesn't happen that much. You don't get that many blockbuster NFL trades, and we 2 in a day.
Yeah. Steven Leibowitz, on the flip side, look how fast Baker picked up enough of the Rams playbook to start on little notice. Yeah, it depends. It depends. And people mentioning Snead in the comments. Yeah, L'Jarius Snead is a pretty good shutdown corner. But I don't know. We'll see. They have to flip him over to Buffalo eventually, right? Like before the slate starts. There's still plenty of time.
Yeah, I assume they will. Like I'm 99.9% sure they will, but also just want to let people know like why we can't at the time that we're doing this, because he's not in our data because he's not eligible to score fantasy points right now.
All right. What do you think about throwing in, because we only have 4,900 per player. I want to throw in one more, mid-range guy and see where that takes us. I'm thinking Drake or Deontay. Drake London or Deontay Johnson.
All right. So London is 6,900. I like both of them this week. London is 6,900. Deontay Johnson is 6,600. I've been playing a lot of Deontay Johnson ever since Adam Thielen went down, and also since Andy Dalton took over as quarterback. And yeah, we've seen some good upside from Deontay Johnson. I don't think he's been priced appropriately for it. Great matchup this week against Washington as well. Let's plug in Deontay Johnson. He's also $300 cheaper than Drake London, which I think matters considering we're kind of hamstrung for salary in this lineup. I
think it matters too. Drake London does project really well this week, and I think he should, but Johnson projects pretty well on top of that. 31% target share since Andy Dalton took over. Just a really huge number. He's been one of the better receivers in football. Here's another good one. For almost 50% of the team air yards, 426 over the last 4 weeks. Some people call them prayer yards. They don't matter, but yeah, at least those opportunities exist. So let's plug Deontay Johnson in. That leaves us with 4,500.
All right. So we have to start going really cheap. Now, this is where I think we just have to plug in Elijah Moore at close to min price.
Oh God. Are you kidding me?
He's 3,200. Like we have to punt somewhere here now.
I know. Or we could call an audible, put Andy Dalton with Jatavian Sanders in and pull Sam Darnold since it's a single stack anyway, and leave Justin Jefferson.
I think we're committed to the Sam Darnold stack at this point.
Okay. I mean, we're not, but okay. Let's we're not.
I mean, we'll finish out the lineup. We'll see what it
Let's do
looks
it. All right. Let's go, Elijah. That's fine. That's fine. This is why I like this tool, because it kind of gives you, like, I start building these things and looking at our ownership and projections and everything. And sometimes I start going, all right, you know what? Maybe I need to change things up, but this is helpful. This is a good exercise here. That gives us about 5,000 per player. Now, this is where if injuries occur, you could just be getting really good value. It probably won't happen, but one of them will be. Like Madison, if Zamir White is out against the Rams, I don't think the Rams defense is good at all. I would be willing to go to Alexander Madison there. even though he's not good. Pollard against Buffalo with Tajay Spears out is 6,300. I think we might have to plug Trey Sermon here. He hasn't been good, but the volume has been pretty crazy, and he's played 60% of snaps in back-to-back weeks. They are favored at home against the Miami defense that isn't going to inspire confidence in many people.
Yeah, and it was something you and I were briefly talking about before the show started. We were going over the Trey Sermon projection. It's like, how should he project for this many fantasy points? He's been terrible. But at the same time, too, like last week was miserable. But 2 weeks ago, his first game without Jonathan Taylor. And once again, we're assuming Jonathan Taylor is going to be out again. If it ends up that he ends up playing, then obviously Trey Sermon isn't in play. But you look at the game he had 2 weeks ago, 10 carries for 38 yards, 6 targets in the passing game. He caught all 6 of them for 25 yards. So just dumping them screen passes. It didn't really go anywhere. But then you look at the end of the day and it's like, all right, he got a handful of red zone red zone touches. He scored a touchdown. So even though he averaged like 4 yards per touch and a lot of that came through the passing game, he still ends up scoring 18 fantasy points in that game. He's got a good matchup as well against the Dolphins. So all things considered, Trey Sermon looks pretty serviceable, $5,500, especially when you consider he's currently only projected for 3% ownership.
And that is, of course, if Jonathan Taylor misses another game. Yeah. S&P.
So now if we go cheap at tight end, then we've got like a reasonable amount of salary left for the flex spot.
S&P also, per Wikipedia, Van Jefferson saw 27% of offensive snaps in his first outing with the team on week 6, but saw a significant uptick playing 49 and 71. That's a good, Van Jefferson's a perfect proxy for Amari Cooper this week, right?
I mean, that's really all we've got. Also, like, what is Van Jefferson even playing for snaps now? I mean, I don't even think he's playing a significant amount at this point.
Do we have anything on Travis Fulgham when the Eagles plucked him from the Lions practice squad? All right, so let's go Philly Phantom. Kyron has been so solid. Yeah, the workload. That's the thing about Kyron. Ben and I had a bit of a discussion on this where he was talking about Bijan and take him over Kyron potentially this week. And I know it was early in the week. It was yesterday, but I'm just, and Bijan could have another big game, but even last week, like Algier still had the same amount of carries and 105 yards and got into the end zone. It could be anyone in LA. If the running game struggles, at least you know that you're not trying to hit a moving target with the Rams. And that's what I liked. Does that make sense, Greg? Like there is no moving target in LA where you simply know that Kyron's going to play 80 to 90+% of snaps. And if the run game struggles and if the offense struggles, it wasn't because he wasn't the guy getting any of the opportunities. I don't want to try and figure 3 things out at once.
Yeah. And the run game probably is going to struggle. Like he's also been terrible this year from a real life perspective. Like he's averaging 3.8 yards per carry. It doesn't prevent them from getting him the ball 20+ times every single week. I mean, 23 touches last game. And I know they didn't play last Sunday, but still. So you got 23 touches, 26 touches, 16 touches, 21 touches. The only game that he didn't get over that 20 touch mark was a 41-10 loss to the Cardinals, where just starters didn't play at the end of the game. Every other week, you're getting 23, 24+ targets for Kyren Williams. Isn't going well from an efficiency standpoint, but it doesn't matter when somebody gets that much action.
Yep. Jake Mostert was actually already back last week. So, yeah. Or sorry, 2 weeks ago before the bye. So what do we have to work with here?
So we've got now 4,700, it looks like. So if we punt at tight end, and I think there's a number of interchangeable pieces here, if we want to go to like Theo Johnson, if we wanted to plug in Jatavian Sanders, we go a little bit cheaper, potentially with Colby, a little bit more expensive. I mean, with Colby Parkinson, but we do already have Kyron in the lineup. Zach Ertz is $3,900. He was pretty heavily involved last week. Like there's a number of cheap guys we could go to here that's going to give us like 6K plus to plug in the flex spot.
Who do you want now? Oh, and by the way, guys, sorry, Greg. If you wanted to use the single lineup sim, if you wanted to use the contest generator and the actual pre-contest sim, which, obviously we use every single week here, not only in the shows, but for all of our contests, ownership, player projections, boom bust, top stack tool. Well, there's a couple ways to do this. There are a couple ways to do this. If you look in the description, right? If you go into the description, of course, you could go in and grab it and look at any of those subs that you want. Or you could go in to the first link where it says join any sportsbook, get to Stokastic sims for free, get the core package, which includes a single lineup sim, post-contest simulator, pre-contest sim, late swap simulator, all of that. It's $100 value. All you got to do is use any of our claim offer links on that page when you click the link, whether it's Bet365. Clearly, if you're in that state, that's the best one because you get $200 in bonus bets, and their Thursday night promo with $10 in bonus bets per every touchdown scored when you bet a same game parlay. But it could be Caesars, BetMGM, could be any of those. FanDuel, if for some reason you're not there yet, $200 in bonus bets for a $5 bet. Any of those, and even if you're in non-legal betting states, any of those pick'em sites, Underdog, Vivid, Sleeper, Prize Picks, sign up, make a minimum deposit, right? With the claim now, like Jordan can go back to the page. You'll see it. It's right there. Scroll down. You'll see claim now for any of those. You click that claim offer. Once you deposit and once you make your first bet, the moment that bet settles, doesn't have to be football. It could be any bet. You could bet a live ping pong bet in fucking Russia. The moment that settles, email us at support@stokastic.com with your welcome email from that book or that site. And then also with the screenshot of your first settled bet, and immediately free month of any sport that you want, core package, $100 value. And if you were to sign up at BetMGM, Bet365, and Caesars, that is 3 months. So you could go give me NFL, give me NBA, or give me 3 straight months of NFL. It's the best thing we've got going right now by a mile, Greg.
Yeah, and we've also got, in addition to this, our NBA package just went live on the site. We don't have projections up or anything yet, but we've got our NBA package up for the start of the NBA season and our first promo, which is, there's a link down below in the YouTube description box, but tip off 24, it's already loaded into that link. Just $1. Same sort of deal that we ran at the start of the NFL season. If you sign, it doesn't matter if you sign up today, it doesn't matter if you sign up tomorrow, you wait until next week, you would be getting access to our core Sims package for NBA through October 29th. So it's not something, it's not like a 7-day subscription. It's going to be whenever you sign up, you get access through October 29th. We just want to make it as easy as possible for you guys. Or if you wanted to sign up earlier and just watch some of the tutorials and see how the tools work, just $1 for the opening games of the NBA season. So if you're looking to play NBA DFS this year, just $1. It's a great deal.
Truly no better time to become a sub over at Stokastic and check out the tools, or come back to them if you've been there before and you were waiting for the opportunity. The time is now. Anyway, all of those links down there in the description. We'll see you guys over there. And don't forget, no matter whether you do the dollar NBA or you sign up through any of those sports books, 21 years old or to gamble, you have a gambling problem, call or text 100-GAMBLER. Join the Discord. Say what's up. Join the community for sure. And let us know you're there. We appreciate that stuff. And I think you guys will enjoy it as well. All right. So here's what we'll do. We have Darnold, Kyron, Trey Sermon. This is assuming Taylor's out. Deontay Johnson, Elijah Moore, Browns defense, tight end, and flex. Did you throw one more guy in there?
Not yet. We kind of brought up a list of potential tight ends that we might want to be going to, but didn't specifically determine which one it is. Let's see. Let's go cheap at 20. Like anybody we could get sub 3K. Do you have somebody you really like sub 3K, or do we just plug Johnny Munden right now?
I mean, I think right now Johnny Mund is actually fine. We don't know that this is just us figuring out how builds work anyway. I don't think throwing Johnny Mund in there is the worst idea, and just see what happens.
Okay. Yeah, it'll give us a little bit of extra correlation. Then obviously if Hawkinson ends up playing, we're not rostering Mund this week if Hawkinson's in anyway.
Correct. All right. So it gives us 6,600 for flex. There's got to be something good here.
Yeah. So 6,700.
Wait, 6,700? Who?
What's that number? 66. Sorry. All right. So who projects the best? $6,600 or less.
Well, prior to, I mean, we had Aaron Jones projecting extremely well prior to this. I just don't know if he's going to play.
We could plug in.
I love I love the Brian Robinson, Deontay Johnson build. Absolutely love it if he's active.
Yeah, and Robinson he's 7,100 though. Oh no, I'm looking at Bijan. Sorry, Brian Robinson. Yeah, 64. Let's plug in Brian Robinson.
Let's try it. Jordan, before you run it, do large field and 25 to first. Okay. That gives you 200 if you wanted to try and upgrade at running back. What do we get? What do we get? Okay.
All right, nice.
Not bad. Not amazing, but not bad. I want to try an Andy Dalton lineup, and then let's go FanDuel.
Yeah, we do the cheap Dalton build. We go with Deontay Johnson. We could go Jatavian Sanders. You could even go, I wouldn't even mind Chuba Hubbard in a lineup with Dalton, although with that said, I'm maybe a little bit concerned about Hubbard going forward now that Brooks is potentially back, but we don't know if he's going to end up playing this week either. But Jonathan Brooks was activated off the injured reserve. I think it was yesterday.
Okay, yeah, and you could go Xavier Legette is too expensive. The guy, I would rather go all the way down to Sanders, and we don't know if Tremble plays, or we could go like a Jalen Coker or something like that, and just at minimum salary hope he gives us 10. I actually don't hate the idea of going with Jalen Coker.
Yeah, I mean, so if you look at a couple of things. First, he's extremely cheap, right? He's
minimum salary.
He's the flat man. It's more going to be somebody who projects well for, not well, but like reasonably for now. We've got him for like 8 fantasy points. But if other value opens up, he kind of falls by the wayside. It's like one of these NBA DFS sort of situations. Like, hey, this guy, good value for now, but better value will probably open up later. But as things stand now, yeah, he looks pretty reasonable because he's so cheap and he's been targeted 7 times the last couple of weeks.
Let's just try it. I just want to see what a really cheap stack looks like for Carolina. That's all I want to do here, right? We're not trying to do anything crazy. Let's just see if a really cheap stack looks as good as we think it will once we build it.
Okay.
Throw Giants defense in there, Jordan. New York Giants defense. Again, just kind of musical chairs here, the cheap defenses that project, semi-decently. 6,500 per player, Greg, without even putting a tight end in yet.
This is going to make it easier for us to go to like Kyron Williams. I do think Aaron Jones at $6,500, even with his status up in the air with Aiden Hutchinson out for Detroit, I think that could potentially set up more touchdown opportunities for the Vikings. So Aaron Jones at $6,500. We did talk more about the Vikings passing game to this point, but I do think Aaron Jones is still a viable option at $6,500 as long as he's good to go. I think that in that 6K range, he looks pretty good.
Jordan, revert him back to his original projection then. Let's just see. We had him projected very high, Greg. I talked to Tom. He said he doesn't see anything wrong with it. 26.5 point total. So it was 19.7. The only reason I bumped him was for the sake of we were getting him in every lineup when we ran the Sims.
All right. So Aaron Jones, Kyron Williams, we could spend up at running back here.
Okay. Aaron Jones, Kyron Williams. Still 6K remaining. So let's say you wanted to go to a $4,200 Dalton Schultz or like $3,900 Zach Ertz or $3,800 Kobe Parkinson. Pick one of those. Pick one of those for me. Do you want Pitts, Schultz, Ertz, or Parkinson?
Can
or
I
crap?
pivot and say pay up for Kelsey? Because I think Kelsey's back now that Rashee Rice is out of the picture. Like Kelsey's getting a lot of work again.
You want to pay up for Kelsey at 63?
I mean, look at the volume now the last couple of weeks. Travis Kelsey. All right, so Travis Kelsey, if you just discount the first few weeks of the year when Rashee Rice was the number one guy, you got 10 targets out of Kelsey against the Saints, 9 targets for him against the Chargers. I think we're getting somewhere in the neighborhood of like 8 to 10 targets every game for him the rest of the season.
You wouldn't want to just save 500 and go to Brock Bowers?
I'd rather go to Kelsey if I could.
Okay.
And we still got a lot of salary here.
5,900 for the last 2. Just looking at some of these guys. I mean, I can tell you I'll tell you exactly who I want.
Okay.
We have a Dalton stack. I would like to go to Terry McLaurin at 6,800.
Okay. That makes sense as a run back to me. Because we don't have Brian Robinson in this lineup. Brian Robinson, the flex, there'll be another way we could get a run back here. I think both of them really strong run back options.
And then we don't have him projected well. Jerry Judy's sitting there at 4,800.
$5,200 left at the flex. Who projects the best of all the players here, Jordan?
We have 5,000 left, not 52.
Oh, 5,000, my bad. So we could go put Judy in.
Ray McLeod would show up better if we wanted to, game the system here, but we could try it with Judy and just see what happens, right?
Let's do it.
Where would we even upgrade if we went Ray McLeod? I feel like the only spot to upgrade would be a defense.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing we could do is we go Ray McLeod, and then we have the option. Oh, this lineup still looks pretty solid. We could go to, it would have to be defense unless we're taking one of the stacking partners out. Like if we wanted to make it just a double stack instead of a triple stack. Oh no, we did only do a double stack. Yeah, I don't think there is another way that I really want to change the lineup.
There's not much. I went Ray McLeod, and then if I just threw like Rams defense in there, I'm gonna run that with Ray and Rams defense over Judy and Giants defense. The defense there really makes no difference. I'm just, spending more of the set. That gets us to 111. Which I figured would be the case, right?
Yeah, because McLeod projects better for us.
Yeah, for sure. We also don't have that great of a projection on Terry McLaurin right now. But I'll say this, like, if I'm stacking Dalton with a double stack, I do feel like I want something from Washington coming back. I'm not saying it's 100% necessity, but like if the Dalton passing game takes off and Chuba Hubbard doesn't, you would think that you'd want something from Washington on the other side.
Yeah, I think but yeah, either whether it's McLaurin or Robinson, assuming Robinson's good to go, I don't really have a preference between the two. I think both of them are good options for a game stack.
I'd be very okay with Brian Robinson there, assuming he's active and not limited for sure. I like Robinson a lot this week if he plays. Should we do FanDuel?
Yep, let's fire up a FanDuel lineup.
Yeah, let's go. I haven't looked at FanDuel yet, so this should be interesting. Have you looked at FanDuel? I assume you ran a sim on FanDuel, right?
Tons of chalk on Washington.
Why are we just cheap price points?
So quarterback is kind of weak this slate. Jaden Daniels is pulling in 24% ownership on FanDuel QB.
Really?
Jaden Daniels is, he is 24% owned. The only other QB with double-digit ownership on FanDuel, and I do like him a good amount. Kirk Cousins is only $7,200 on FanDuel. So these are the quarterbacks priced around Kirk Cousins. You got Cousins at $7,200. Geno Smith is $7,600. Anthony Richardson is $7,400. Sam Darnold is $7,500. Andy Dalton is $7,300. So I think Kirk Cousins makes a lot of sense over on FanDuel. If you wanted to be contrarian, I think the contrarian option that's pretty interesting is going to be Anthony Richardson at $7,400 as well. Like, we've seen the fantasy upside that he has, and just the 180 people have done on Richardson, where nobody seems to want anything to do with him because of his struggles, and then him missing some time due to injuries, and Joe Flacco looking good. But yeah, in that 7K range, I like Sam Darnold, but we already built a DraftKings lineup with him. I like Kirk Cousins at $7,200. And if I wanted to be really contrarian and try to capture upside, Richardson at $7,400. I just don't know that you need to stack him with anybody.
I agree. He stinks, but he also has fantasy upside. You know what we could go with? I'll give you one that could be kind of fun here, because of the stacking attachments and the potential shootout with this game having a 50.5 point total. Similarly priced to Richardson and Kirk Cousins, Geno Smith.
Sure. 7,600. So he's a little bit more expensive than those guys, but not crazily so.
What do we have? What are the price points on some of these Seattle pass catchers?
Yeah, so you've got Tyler Lockett is $5,800. And then you got Jackson Smith and Jigba is $6,100. The one issue here is that presumably we'd feel most comfortable stacking Geno Smith with DK Metcalf, and Metcalf is $8,100 on FanDuel.
He's expensive.
Whereas
how do you want to do it?
If you're playing the Kirk Cousins stack, not only is Cousins less expensive than Geno Smith, but Drake London is $7,500 as opposed to Metcalf being $8,100.
Let's do Cousins and then do it like a JSN run back or something.
Okay. So Cousins and Drake London.
Cousins, Drake London. Where's Mooney at? Mooney is 6,300. McLeod is 5,500. Obviously, London's the first guy going in, but I'll tell you what. Pitts is 5,900.
All of these guys individually, I think, are viable. Like, London is going to be a core play for me on FanDuel this week, but McLeod, I think, is a good value at $5,500. I think there's upside in Mooney as well at $6,300, and then even Pitts at tight end at $5,900. I think any of them make sense as a second stack with Cousins.
Let's just try Pitts since tight end is never good. Let's just try Cousins, London, and Pitts.
Okay.
And then who do you think? JSN run back or Lockett run back? Obviously, Metcalf is the best of them, but if we were to go cheaper here and just try and open some things up and still get a pretty nice game stack, I don't mind either of those guys, really.
Let's say Lockett just because he's cheaper. They're comparable. We've got comparable ownership and player projections on them, but Lockett's $5,800, where Smith and Jigba is $6,100. I don't have a strong lean between the two, so I'll just make the tiebreaker the guy who's cheaper and Lockett.
Okay. All right. Throw a cheap defense in there.
Yeah, defense, we could plug in let's
Giants
Dolphins
are
$3,600 against the Colts.
Okay. Let's do it. Now the fun part begins. We've got 2 running backs, a wide receiver, and a flex. 7,500 remaining per player. We got to go Kyron here.
Kyron, yeah, $8,600. That's not all that difficult to fit into lineups. There's a lot of guys that I think look pretty viable around this price range. If we wanted to get a little bit more correlation too, Achane is priced down to $6,900 now on FanDuel. So Achane is cheaper than Tony Pollard. He's cheaper than Najee Harris. He's cheaper than Chuba Hubbard. That seems like a little bit too low of a price point on Achane.
It does. Do you have any concerns though that just like, Raheem Mostert's healthy now. The offense is not good.
Yeah, it's more so that I like the price point on him, and he would just correlate with us already plugging the Dolphins defense in.
Okay, try it. 6,900 is not crazy. 7,250 for wide receiver and a flex. A lot of potential here.
We could plug Aaron Jones in again at 7,200.
I actually love that because if you plug Aaron Jones in at 7,200, that gives you Terry McLaurin, Deontay Johnson, Tank Dell, any of those guys.
Yeah, whichever one projects the best, just plug him in, Jordan. Deontay Johnson, cool.
I would think this lineup looks good.
Yeah. Achane might be like a little bit dicey in our projections, but otherwise it's guys who are projecting pretty well.
I'm going to say 57. All right, not bad. It might be like the Achane and Lockett not projecting all that well, and Kyle Pitts, but also this is, a two-man stack with a Seattle run back. Looks okay to me.
Yeah. I mean, if we wanted to take out Achane and then we could move Aaron Jones to running back, maybe there's somebody who projects better than Achane that we could put into the flex.
That's a good idea. Let's try that. Put Aaron Jones in running back, remove Achane, gives us 7,100 at flex. Kelsey, Tony Pollard.
Pollard the best there? Yeah, just go Pollard instead. Yeah, I bet this will probably be like another, I don't know, 15, 20% sim ROI or something.
And if you wanted to, just like some little tweaks that you can make, good call. Just a few other tweaks that you could make if you wanted would be like, if you wanted a Terry McLaurin spot in there with Deontay Johnson on the other side, you could do Terry McLaurin at flex and then go down 100 at defense to the Browns or something. Might not sim quite as well, but it will be a positively simmed lineup for sure.
Yeah, I mean, 80.9% sim ROI. If any of the lineups we built on FanDuel or DraftKings, this is the one that came out the best.
It's the best one, yeah. What are your favorite stacking spots this week with what we know? Because there's still a lot of uncertainty. I think by Friday, when you and I do the sim show, and we're going to have practice reports for Wednesday and Thursday, which is like today's practice reports are going to be massive for us kind of getting a better understanding of whether or not Jones and Jonathan Taylor and so many of these other running backs are going to even have a chance to be on the field this week, or if we're just saying, no, they're going to play. Who are your favorite stacks right now?
Sure. So, like, I like the Commanders and Jaden Daniels, but it's such a popular option on both DraftKings and FanDuel, which I think is all the more reason to like potentially getting to Andy Dalton on the other side, because Jaden Daniels, at least as of now, is the most popular quarterback of the entire season. He is 19% owned on DraftKings, and we just talked about how he's like 25% owned over on FanDuel. So, yeah, he's a good option, Jaden Daniels. I'd certainly recommend him in cash games, but I don't know that I want a quarter of my lineups be one QB if that ownership holds until Sunday. So I like him, but I would likely be underweight to the field to him. So quarterbacks that I want to be overweight to the field on, Sam Darnold, certainly one, Kirk Cousins, Geno Smith as well. I think that's a good game stack to be having both sides of. Andy Dalton, $5,200. Yeah, I would say those four. And then one also, if I wanted to be contrarian, and I'm not going to say Deshaun Watson, I think he's viable, but he's not like the contrarian guy that I want to tether myself to at this point in the week. Patrick Mahomes is 2% owned against the San Francisco 49ers. And I think we have a better sense now of where the targets are going to be going to, and that's going to be Travis Kelce at tight end. I mean, we knew it was going to be Rashee Rice before. Now it's Kelce as that guy. Considering how weak the tight end position has been this season, I think that you could go, if you get a big Travis Kelce game, it probably is going to coincide with a big Patrick Mahomes game. It's just very rare that you get this much talent at this low of ownership. So a 2% on Patrick Mahomes, that'll be my contrarian QB to look at. And he's not even all that expensive. Like, you got Jaden Daniels is $7,600 and 20% owned on DraftKings. Patrick Mahomes is $7K and he's 2% owned.
When is the last good game from Patrick Mahomes?
Let's see. We're talking about fantasy purpose.
Yeah.
I mean, he had 331 passing yards last week. It didn't lead to touchdowns, but 331 passing yards. He had 39 attempts as well. Like, that was fairly solid. Plus, you got the rushing upside with him as well. He had 22 rushing yards last week. He hasn't had a slate breaking game yet this season. I actually can't even remember how many times they've been on a main slate. Maybe once or twice the entire year. They didn't play last week either.
He has one, get this, he has 120 fantasy point performance over his last 15 starts. And would you believe this, Greg? It was in the Super Bowl against the San Francisco 49ers.
46 pass attempts. He had 333 yards. He had 66 rushing yards in that game, 2 passing touchdowns.
Yeah, they might just need him more than normal here. Before we go, we're going to do this really quickly. Indulge me. We'll do this for the people here. Jordan, go to DraftKings single lineup sim. And I want you to preload it with these 4 players. And then, Greg, help me build this out.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, so DraftKings, large contest 25, preloaded with Jaden Daniels, Terry McLaurin, Deontay Johnson, and Zach Ertz. Jaden Daniels, Terry McLaurin, Deontay Johnson, and Zach Ertz. So a double stack Jaden Daniels plus the Deontay run back, and then just throw in Giants defense, because they actually project pretty well right now. I want to, before we go, we're doing a single lineup. So Greg, we at least have to see how easy it is to build a Washington stack this week.
Mm-hmm.
And for what it's worth, I don't think Deontay Johnson is a necessary run back, but for this one, we're going to do it.
Okay.
56.50 remaining per player. You're up.
56. All right. So we have to go somewhat cheap now at running back. Like, we can't just spend up for Kyron Williams comfortably here, I don't think. So instead at running back, I guess we would go. Well, actually,
I think you can probably do it, actually.
Let's go Trey Sermon and Tony Pollard, I guess. Pollard 6,300.
Okay. Yeah, I'd say Trey Sermon or or Trey Sermon and Pollard, or Trey Sermon and Aaron Jones would be my 2.
We could go cheap at wide receiver and get Jones in the flex as well.
Okay, let's try it. And this is, of course,
just do it now, Jordan. Put Aaron Jones in the flex. And then whoever projects best at wide receiver here. If we have to, we could upgrade Trey Sermon to another spot.
Isn't McLeod 4,300? I mean, that's going to be. He's not. Okay.
I think he was 4,300 last week. Oh, you know what? I don't mind Trey Tucker this week, though.
I don't hate it. Unless you wanted to go insane with a Noah Brown in there. Go QB +3.
Yeah, I don't know about all that there.
Yeah, it's tough with Jaden Daniels. So that's just a quick speed build. See if it looks okay.
Yeah.
113.
Does look more than okay. More than okay.
Pretty good. The Washington Commanders have a 30.5 point total this week. They just look fantastic. So I think any way you want to get to that type of exposure, it's going to work for you. Anything else before we go, man?
Yeah. Tomorrow, Josh and I are going to be doing the first NBA show of the year. Now that we've got
now that we've got
the NBA package live. So it's, we're still, what is it, a few days in advance of the first slate of the year. So it's not like we're going to be running sims and stuff on the show. We're just going to be looking at initial pricing, and we'll see who looks like some of the best value options and some of the best payoff options for the 2-game slate. So if you guys have been looking for NBA content, tomorrow, Josh and I are going to be doing it right after the NFL Showdown Strategy show. So Showdown Strategy with Lofty and Gajeski, that's going to be 10 to 11 a.m. Eastern time. And then Josh and I are going to jump on and talk some NBA.
Can't wait. That is how I start actually prepping for NBA, because knee deep in football. So very excited for that. Guys, take advantage of the Sportsbook's offers to get in free month or many months, however many you can sign up, depositing, place a bet, and prove to us that you did through those links. Then you got it. I mean, you could just be free rolling on subs as long as you want with this offer. I don't know how long it's going to go on for, but while it's here, link in the description, link in the chat. Appreciate you hanging out as always. Follow Greg at G Ehrenberg DFS. I'm at Lofty_D. You and I will be back. Well, I'll be back with Matt tomorrow for Showdown Strategy, Showdown Live before lock. And then you and I will be back for the Tournament Strategy show on Friday morning, same time as always. Peace.